Welcome to the AI for Career Success video overview by Curt Robbins. We're experts at AI coaching and helping professionals like you and your employees upskill in AI. Today, we're diving into a really critical case study. It forces us to ask a tough ethical question, one that sits right at the crossroads of technology and public safety. And that question is, what is a tech company's duty? Its responsibility when its platform is used to plan violence. Our entire discussion today is based on the reporting by Anthony Ha over at TechCrunch. The article is titled OpenAI CEO Apologizes to Tumbler Ridge Community. And let me tell you, this report, it really brings our central question into sharp and frankly tragic focus. So, let's start with the biggest public development in the story, the apology. We're talking about a public apology from OpenAI's leadership, which is essentially an admission, an acknowledgement of a really critical failure in their safety protocols. Here's the direct quote from the CEO, Sam Altman. What you really need to hear in this statement is the explicit admission, we did not alert law enforcement. That right there, that confirms this major breakdown between what the company was doing internally and what its responsibilities were to the outside world.
Now, you should know, this wasn't just some standard corporate press release. No, this was a carefully coordinated step. The apology was actually published in the local newspaper, the Tumbler Ridge Lines, and only after direct talks with the town's mayor and the premier of British Columbia. That really tells you something, right? It shows the immense pressure OpenAI was under to address the community's grief head-on.
Okay, so that's the apology, but now we have to talk about the event that made it necessary in the first place. It's crucial that we understand the very real-world human consequences of what was, at its core, a technological and ethical failing.
The incident we're talking about was a mass shooting. It took place in a community called Tumbler Ridge up in Canada. And according to police reports, the alleged shooter was an 18-year-old named Jesse Van Rootsler.
The attack, it resulted in the deaths of 8 people. Just let that number sink in. 8. That is the devastating human cost at the very heart of this entire case.
And this brings us right to the core of the failure. You see, OpenAI had information beforehand. They had prior knowledge that suggested a potential for violence. But that critical warning, it was tragically missed. Let's walk through this timeline because it really lays out the sequence of events. So in June 2025, OpenAI flags and bans Van Rootsler's account. Why? For describing gun violence. Okay, so far so good. But then, in that critical window between June and the shooting, OpenAI staff actually debated alerting the police, but they decided against it. They only contacted Canadian authorities after the shooting happened. That gap, that period of inaction, that is the central critical point of this entire failure. So that brings us to the aftermath. And what you have here is a classic scenario. Corporate promises of reform on one side, clashing with some very sharp criticism from government officials on the other. In response to all this, OpenAI has publicly committed to making some specific safety improvements. They've promised, for one, more flexible criteria for deciding when an account needs to be referred to the authorities. And second, and this is absolutely critical, they're establishing direct points of contact with Canadian law enforcement. The goal there is pretty obvious, to prevent these kinds of delays from ever happening again. But those promises didn't exactly land on receptive ears. They were met with this incredibly pointed response from British Columbia's Premier David Eby. He said the apology was, and I'm quoting here, necessary and yet grossly insufficient for the devastation done. Wow, that statement just perfectly highlights the massive gap between how a corporation views fixing a problem and how a government, representing the victims, sees true accountability. So, let's zoom out for a second. What are the broader implications here? Well, this single incident has really ignited a serious, and I think long overdue, debate about the future of AI governance. We're talking about corporate responsibility for the entire industry. And there are direct consequences already. Canadian officials have made it clear they are now actively considering new regulations specifically aimed at artificial intelligence. It's very possible that this one tragedy could be the catalyst for major government intervention and oversight in the AI space. And all of this brings us right back to where we started, back to that central, unresolved question. This case really forces every single one of us, especially professionals in the tech world, to think hard about this. Where does a platform's responsibility to monitor and report end, and where does the duty of law enforcement begin? Finding the answer to that question is going to define the future of digital safety for all of us.
Thank you for watching. This is where we teach you AI and help you get smarter than your competition. If you like these videos, use the QR code at the beginning to buy us a coffee or hire us to coach you or your employees in AI. Please subscribe to the AI for Career Success YouTube channel. Like, comment, and share to help us reach a wider audience.